Hey, here we are for week number 2. They don't know this, but it's actually week number 3. The very first time we did this, we were
right.
Yeah, we're not going to show that to anybody.
Not everything we do is great.
We're not even saying that this is going to be great.
No guarantees.
But we're doing it.
Yes,
and so welcome. We're glad that you're tuning in with us. This is our podcast, weekly podcast, On the Other Hand, taking challenging topics, difficult topics, looking at them from multiple perspectives and just bringing our perspective to the table. And our hope is that it's beneficial to you, that you find it something worth hearing discussion on and then continuing to think about and have discussion on as well. So we got a topic we're hitting today, and actually it really sort of emerged for us over the past couple of days in some conversation that we had, and then also a series that we have coming up.
Yeah, so that topic is social media and the family, and it's something that we deal with often, and we get a lot of questions about as well, and know that it's something that a lot of people are dealing with right now in particular. Hot topic, and so the real issue is, when do we allow social media? Do we allow social media into our lives? Is it healthy? Is it unhealthy? At what age do we allow that? Do we think it's okay? And so we're going to talk a little bit around that.
Yeah, right. Specifically in the realm of parenting, right, and the impacts of social media on the family and those kinds of things. And the reality is that we don't just deal with this topic from a pastoral perspective, right? We have families, right? And so we're having to navigate these things on our own. So what is it that qualifies you to be speaking to this topic?
Well, I have 2 teenagers, boy and girl, Seth and Kate, and early on, what everybody has faced, right? Both my kids happen to go to public school, and early on, it was that kind of had this model in my head. Hey, they're going to get smartphones, when they're like 25
30.
Or so. Yeah, right. And then they came to me, in 4th grade, right? Or whatever it is, right? They came to me earlier than I anticipated and said, everybody has the latest and the greatest. Mm-hmm. And so automatically there's this tension in my home, and how am I going to answer these questions and navigate that? And I know we all wrestle with that.
Yeah, we can remember that. Everybody has a Palm Pilot. Okay, may have dated us.
Stylists.
And so for me, in regards to this topic, it's a little bit of a unique scenario because my wife and I have a son who is about to get married, and so in his mid-20s, and then we got involved in adoption and foster care, and we also have 3 little girls now. So we have this huge gap in between. And so for us, even the issues that Caleb was dealing with are different than, and will be different than, the issues our girls are going to deal with. And so for them now at 8, 9, and 10 years old, we're looking ahead and saying, man, there are challenges currently, there are challenges in the future, and so how do we navigate these things, right? It wasn't like a one and done. We got to figure it out all over again. And you have the same thing. You have younger kids, not just 2 teenagers. Right. You have 2 younger kids as well, and they're going to navigate different challenges.
Yeah, and they're convinced that all of their friends' phones are already better than Dad's phone, and that if I don't have the latest and greatest. But that's not even, it's not just even phones or screens, right? We're drilling down on the idea of social media and its impact. But we actually wanted to do something right out of the gate here, and that is show off our families just a little bit. And we don't even know what to call this segment. We don't know if we'll do it again, but it's the idea of, hey, I'm going to show Jonathan a picture that he doesn't know about, hopefully, and then he has to explain something about it. And it's about family. We're going to keep it in that context. So, Are you guys ready for this? Here's the picture. They get to see it first. We're going to magically zoom that in front of you, and here is the picture. Tell me.
Well, I don't know why we're upside down in this picture, but
tell me what's going on here.
If you turn it this is actually one of my favorite pictures.
Is that right?
In fact, we used to travel up and down the Alcan every year. We lived in Homer, and so from the time Caleb was a little kid, because he was born in Homer, from the time he was a little kid, we'd take these trips, and we'd always stop in Glacier National Park, and we would do hiking, climbing, rappelling, and so we've been doing that stuff since he was really little. But the reason we're both have our heads shaved in this picture is because I had this habit of about every 6 months or so, I would just get a hankering to shave my head. And so Kitri never liked it, but she would hear me in the bathroom, bzzz, and I'd shave all my hair off. On this particular occasion, Caleb was in there with me, and so I shaved both of our heads. And we spent the summer looking like thugs and hiking around in the mountains.
And just for those of you who don't know, Caleb is our production manager in the room with us and supplied this picture. This is the original copy. All right, what do you got for me?
So I got two pictures here. I thought it'd be worth people just seeing a picture of your family. So if you could just maybe I'll show everyone here, and then if you can just tell us like how long ago was this picture? What's changed?
Oh wow, that's 3-4 years ago now, maybe 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't have any high schoolers at the time.
All right. And then the other one I came across, the only thing I could guess is maybe this was like you and your dad hiking in the mountains like Caleb and I did. And so I just found this picture of apparently you holding hands and leaping with another man. And so I don't know if this, like, could you explain
Well, there's
this?
nothing unnatural about that, right? Yeah, that was one of my youth leaders. I was youth pastor for a number of years, and this is one of my youth
So
leaders.
this is not your father?
And this is not my father.
Okay, it has nothing to do with family.
And we were in the Alps, and we were enjoying ourselves. And
Clearly.
so we thought we would capture that forever.
You thought we'd hold hands and leap. Okay.
We did it.
Well, that's all I needed to know. Now I fully understand. Thanks for sharing with the group.
You betcha.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things that we want to do with these subjects is we want to place them in a category. We have divide for or disagree about, really disagree, divide, or die for. When it comes to social media, what category should we place this one in?
Well, I would squarely place this in the disagree category,
Okay.
but I think there is an urgency to it for parents in particular, because I can just tell you, watching as a pastor, as someone who's in relationship with hundreds of people and families, we are losing our kids. We are losing the battle for their hearts.
Because of social media.
In large part because of social media. And not just because of the social media the kids are involved in, right? But our own addictions. And so I would say it's a very important category. How we navigate social media, I would primarily place in the we can disagree on that, but we need to be considering it.
So I agree. This is a disagree category. We wouldn't go beyond that. Let's identify, though, what are some of the dangers that you see in particular with social media in the home with your children?
Well, for me, we recently took a trip to Hawaii and took the family. And so for our girls, we thought we can pick them up relatively cheap. Let's get some Kindle Fires, for them. We can put some games. We can put some of their favorite movies on them. Mm-hmm. And then I'm telling you, they just travel great, right? So it's easy for me as a parent, and they're engaged in something, and they're not complaining and, bummed out the whole time we're traveling.
That's right.
And yet,
it's called babysitting.
Yes, yeah, it's internet babysitter,
That's right.
I mean, and so we put all the safeguards in place and that sort of thing. What I've discovered is that my girls can be playing a kid's game, and an image will come up. I actually took a screenshot of one. An image will come up of cartoonish characters, anime-style characters, right? A girl coming up out of the pool and another girl laying on the edge of the pool. They're face-to-face, and it's choose your own adventure, right? Should I kiss her, or should I pull her into the pool with me? And my girls are getting this message through things just like ads popping up, right? You watch almost any kids cartoon made after 2020, and you are going to have a message being pushed on your kids. And the question that we really have to wrestle with is, who do we want to allow being invited into our home,
into the room,
to indoctrinate our children with their headphones on, or in their bedroom, or in every movie they watch? And what I'm observing right now is that that message that's being pushed, you cannot remain ignorant about that as a parent. You have to acknowledge there is an agenda being pushed, and it's being pushed in every environment. And so I'm watching kids currently peel off.
And this is why it matters. And it's one of those things like, none of us, right, would let that creepy guy in the bushes, just into our home and without some conversation or prerequisites or whatever. And yet this is an avenue that does just that, right? Where we have, in many cases, we're oblivious. We don't even know what to monitor, or that could potentially be one of the outcomes of allowing this into our homes.
Yeah, it's. I think when part of the reason we avoid acknowledging that, we think if I just set the right parameters, parental controls on their device or that sort of thing, check, it's taken
Yeah,
care of.
right.
And part of the reason we do that is because as parents, it's easier for us. Right, because the truth is, if I set these boundaries, the goal is not to create rules for my child so that they have rules to follow. The goal is to create space for that to be filled with real relationship,
Yeah.
right? And as a parent, I find that I'd rather be scrolling than engaging in conversation with my kids. I'm exhausted. The day's at an end.
And this is actually one of the dangers that I would identify. Is you mentioned this scrolling, and we know that one of the changes that has really taken place in society as a whole is, we used to get a newspaper and you could open it up and then you could close it, or you read a book, you open it up and there's a chapter and you have this moment to make this decision: do I continue or do I stop? And that was very clear. There's a stopping point. But with this scroll mechanism, the next story is always coming.
Right.
And so there's this other danger, not just, what is the information I'm receiving, but this addictive sort of a thing that happens where I feel like I am going to miss something if I don't keep scrolling and keep engaging. And we know that that's an intentional mechanism that they built into these programs.
Yeah. I would encourage every parent listening to watch The Social Dilemma.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Because you have to at least acknowledge that companies are spending millions and millions of dollars doing the research, learning the algorithms so that they can keep you engaged. Yeah. And so all the medical research reveals the same thing, the neuro research, that the addictive properties of everything from gaming to just social media scrolling are almost identical to drug addiction categories. And so I think you have to be at least willing to inform yourself. And when you realize that the inventors of things like Facebook and Twitter don't allow their own kids, right, to have a phone outside of the living room in their own home, right, they recognize that they have developed something that is created to create addiction. And so it's true for parents, right? And that's why I'd rather do this than be in real relationship with the people who are in the room. But we can't just put rules on our kids and not fill that space with the relationship.
That's right. So, and as we're talking about that, the obvious assumption is, but time out. The reality is we're all doing this, right? I mean, as a church, right? We are using this platform. On social media. That's right. Yeah. We choose that this is a place that we think is appropriate for engagement. And of course, we're always weighing that, to be quite honest with you. And as parents, we're on our phones. I don't know, if this is true anymore, but the old statistic used to be like within the first 30 minutes of a morning, 40% of adults will check their phone, and part of that is social media, right?
It's got to be higher now.
Possibly, and so we're all using this. So why is this so dangerous for children? It kind of starts to beg that question, age appropriate. Some of these other elements. What age do you think? And we'll get more specific about what we're doing in our own homes. But in terms of just how we work through some of those conversations, where do you tend to head in that category? Age, time, how much time should you engage, those kinds of things?
Right. So there's sort of this, I think people need to understand there are promises and there are principles, right?
Okay.
And so often I hear parents quote, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. That's not a promise in the scriptures, right? It's a principle in the scriptures, because we can all look around and see kids who were raised up to do the right thing, but went off on their own path and never returned, right? I would say in this area, when I talk about guidance in my home, I would say, generally speaking, these things are healthy, and I've observed them to be healthy over the years of parenting and years in ministry. And so for us, for our girls in particular, and this was true for Caleb, it's different now because every child has it, and it's viewed as part of their social development. But it isn't actually part of their social development. I think it's actually a hindrance to real social development. And so for our girls, they will not have private media in their own bedroom, right? A smartphone, a TV, a computer, they will not have private media in their own bedroom, right? And so that was a rule my father-in-law gave me years ago. Sounds archaic. Yeah. People are like, no, you can't do that. That's child abuse. It is not. It's child protection, right? And what kids are doing currently is they have access to anything in the world from the comfort and the privacy of their own bedroom. We owe more than that to our kids.
So part of then what, and I would agree, part of them is what we need to say, and we've talked about this at length, really, is parents need permission to say no.
Right.
And I can just testify, that's the feeling as a parent. Number one, you don't ever want to be seen as withholding something good, valuable, or developmental, right? That would be awful. And so that idea that we just have to say yes. We don't have a choice. I know I felt that when I thought I could control some of these things, and then realized, hey, they are sending Google computers home with my children now, and COVID didn't help. Right? It actually made the problem worse. And so there's that constant pressure, and part of us wants to just say, hey, you can say no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you need to think through this. You need to think through it with your children, and it's okay to say no. It doesn't mean that you're doing something bad or withholding something good.
Well, and the other question is, I have to be honest as a parent. Why do I want to say yes? Right. Sometimes that's the case for us, right? That nope, Kitri's gone at the women's retreat. I've got the 3 girls. I just need some me time.
Yeah.
And suddenly me time turns into hours of them on a tablet, right? Without me checking in, engaging with them. So I think it's important also to be honest with ourselves as parents. Why am I actually interested in them engaging in this way? Is it about me or is it about them? Right.
So you bring up the idea of time element. What do you think is typically norm for most people, and what's norm in your home for that time element?
In terms of time engaged on social media?
Engaged on social media.
Or devices?
We could say devices and just kind of roll social media into that, because that's often where kids are engaging.
Yeah, so I would separate, just for clarity, this category out, that if my girls are watching a documentary or something educational and we're all in the living room doing that, that is entirely separate to me than them being on a Kindle, right? Or them being engaged in a movie in the other room by themselves that has nothing to do with education, okay? So just to clarify that. But Kitcher and I have tried lots of different things over time, and I would just say it this way. Thinking about it and putting a time frame on it that is appropriate for this season, right? So honestly evaluating my own motivations for allowing them to be gone for hours in the social media world or the device world. But then also, what does the season require of them? Winter's harder in Alaska than summer is. In the summertime,
it's a unique thing.
It shifts for us. Right now, our expectation is you're not on your device at all during the week except for your computer for school.
Get outside and play.
Right? And you can go outside and play, right? And you're going to hang out with kids in the neighborhood. And so it changes from season to season and season of life, but I would say you need to put a time on it and you need to be evaluating that regularly.
Yeah. So what about age? I mean, when it comes to age, I know the push for this is getting earlier and earlier. Yeah. What's your recommendation for those who are listening?
So the logic, the illogical piece is all my friends have a phone. My girls told me just the other day, a friend their age, she's got 3 phones and an iPad. I'm like, so? And I don't even know why she needs them, right? Like, is she a drug lord? I don't know what's going on. She's 10. But like, so there's that pressure, right? The social pressure. But the logical piece is my kids may need to make a phone call, right? There may be an emergency situation. I may need to be able to get a hold of them when they're someplace else. Well, it's illogical to say they need a smartphone for that. They need a smartphone to dial 911 or they need a smartphone to receive a phone call. They don't. So I don't have to go all the way there, right? And so for my girls, we're probably looking at somewhere in the 14 to 16 range that we would even consider a smart device for them to have in their pocket, right? They have these little, they'll have an iPad or whatever, but the same rule applies in our home to bedrooms.
Yeah, so we actually may need to make a part 2 out of this one. There's a lot more to discuss here, actually. This is an important issue.
Well, and a part 2 would be a lot of fun because people could post, after they watch in the comments or questions or rebuttals, and we could wrestle with those things because it's a big deal. And I think you're right. Parents need to be both given permission, right, and they also need to know that they have a responsibility in their own home.
Well, that's all for today, and thanks for joining us. And there will be a part 2. It's coming. Again, you can reach us, give us feedback on podcast@churchak.org. We'd love for you to do that. We post this every Monday, so join in, and we'll transfer it over to Facebook as well in a link. But otherwise, we would encourage you to share this, and you can do that on YouTube. You can like, follow, or share. Hope all that worked. And we'll see you next week.
See ya.